There's something really satisfying about games that just throw an absolutely ridiculous number of enemies at you and basically ask how long do you think you can survive. And that's pretty much the idea behind Guns and Goblins. It's a first-person horde survival game set in a dark fantasy world where you play as the last bell ringer, defending one of the final bastions left standing behind after the fall of a kingdom. But while the story gives you a reason to be here, the real focus is the gameplay. And if you're familiar with games like Vampire Survivors or Megabonk, you'll probably recognize the foundation pretty quickly. You're thrown into a biome, enemies start coming at you from every direction, and your job is to survive while constantly improving your character and weapons, except here, you're doing it from a first-person perspective. But there's an interesting risk and reward system built around the waves themselves. You can use the bell to summon enemies, meaning you have all the control over how quickly you want things to get crazy. The more enemies you bring in, the more dangerous things become, but it also gives you more opportunities to earn rewards and become stronger. And I definitely tested the limits of that system. The biome currently has around 15 waves, but after upgrading the bell, I ended up pushing into wave 16 by basically calling all the waves together. And at that point, it was complete chaos. Thousands of enemies were filling the environment, projectiles were flying everywhere, and it became less about carefully picking off individual enemies and more about figuring out how to survive the sheer number of things coming towards you. And honestly, that's where the game is at its most fun, because the goal isn't simply to make every run easier, it's about figuring out how far you can push your build before the game pushes back. There are currently 3 weapons available to play around with: a blade, a pistol, and an assault rifle. Each one gives you a different way of dealing with the hordes, and you can upgrade both your character and your weapons as you progress. But weapons aren't the only thing you can use. There are also magic spells that you can upgrade during your run. One example is the fireball, which gives you another way of dealing damage to a group of enemies rather than relying entirely on your weapon. As you continue upgrading these abilities, they become another part of your overall build, so you're essentially combining your weapon and magical abilities to figure out what works best against different waves. The progression is fairly straightforward because there's a limit to how far you can take it in the current version. Once you've maxed out the available upgrades, you eventually hit that ceiling. And that's actually one of the most interesting things about the game, because underneath all that shooting and surviving, there's a much bigger system being built around your character. And then there's the Bastion. Now this is where Guns and Goblins start moving beyond the usual horde survival formula. The Bastion is essentially your base, and you're responsible for rebuilding and improving it. As the game progresses, you're not only worrying about your own character, but you also worry about your defenses and structures that you're trying to maintain. So you end up managing 2 different sides of the experience. On one side, you have the immediate action, which involves shooting, upgrading, and surviving. And on the other hand, you have the long-term progression, which means building your base and improving your defenses. Now that combination is what makes the game feel like it's trying to do more than just simply be another horde shooter. But the real fun is how all these systems come together once you get into the gameplay loop. I also really like the art style and the way the combat looks. The shooting has a really satisfying feel to it, especially when you see your shots actually hit enemies, knocking them back and having coins dropping all over the place. And when you have a huge group of enemies on screen, all those little effects happening at once make the combat feel really satisfying. So I'm really interested to see how all these systems come together in the full game. If the gameplay looks like something you'd enjoy, I'd definitely recommend giving Guns and Goblins a try for yourself. I think it's one of those games that's way more fun when you actually get your hands on it and start experimenting with the different weapons and upgrades. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.